In October 2024, the Valorant esports community would face a shocking new piece of drama. Riot Games revealed that Bleed Esports, at the time considered a rising power in the Asian scene, had been unceremoniously removed from VCT Pacific League. But this bombshell announcement was just the beginning of what would become one of the most catastrophic organizational meltdowns in recent esports history. What appeared to be simply some administrative negligence would turn out to be so much more. On October 4th, Riot Games posted their decision on social media, stating that Bleed had failed to comply with critical reporting requirements and other obligations under the Team Participation Agreement, along with persistent operational failures. While the full details weren't disclosed, industry insiders speculated that the root cause was something that would soon become Bleed's calling card: delayed payments to players. The timing couldn't have been worse for Bleed's Valorant roster. The announcement came just 3 days before the roster lock for VCT Pacific, making it virtually impossible for them to find new teams. These players had effectively lost their jobs overnight with little warning and even less time to secure their professional futures. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Shortly after Bleed's removal from VCT, their Counter-Strike team made a bold statement. They would no longer represent the org and would instead compete under a new, painfully appropriate name: Unpaid. According to the team's coach, Kassad, Bleed had a string of IOUs exceeding $300,000, ranging from unpaid prize money to unpaid player buyouts and even salaries. The biggest debt to be paid was to the tune of $130,000 to Apex. The situation was so dire that players and their coach had personally funded 100% of their bootcamp expenses that should have been covered by the organization. As journalists dug deeper, it became apparent that these issues extended far beyond Valorant and Counter-Strike. Bleed's Rainbow Six Siege division reported similar problems, with player Turdsta revealing he was owed over $35,000 and had been surviving on less than $700 per month while living abroad, forcing him to rely on streaming income just to cover basic necessities.
Now, what was fucked here? I'll tell you something that was fucked. So there was a few instances in which payments, for just salary and stuff like that, would be delayed 2 or 3. It started off with just 2 months, every 2 months. Then it slowly became 3, sometimes 4 months. There was one teammate of mine that didn't have salary for 5 or 6 months. I kid you not. So fucked. There was The most fucked thing is the owner would invite us to go clubbing, right? We would go out clubbing, right? And this guy would just start spending thousands of dollars on fucking alcohol for on champagne and that sort of thing, right? He would spend thousands of dollars on champagne, all while none of us are getting have our pay or salary. He's just fucking.
Perhaps most shocking was the revelation that Bleed had allegedly abandoned 2 of their Mobile Legends Bang Bang players in Singapore after a tournament. Filipino players Dominic and Folkmore were reportedly left stranded without plane tickets home and with no communication from management. Where was Bleed's leadership during all this? According to reports, both top executives had become unreachable. COO Ian Huston reportedly excused himself, citing his upcoming marriage as the reason for his absence. Meanwhile, CEO Go Enwei Mervin was facing far more serious problems: a criminal trial in Singapore for assault charges from 2022. When Bleed finally responded to the allegations from their Counter-Strike team, their statement was notably lacking. They claimed that players had been paid through August with September in processing and denied communication issues. However, they conspicuously failed to address the allegations of unpaid prize money, player buyouts, and bootcamp expenses. And when journalists started to reach out to other organizations, the truth was revealed. Apex confirmed the $130,000 open tab, and G2 and Ninjas in Pajamas stated their own levels of displeasure with Bleed. For Boom Esports' Valorant division, Bleed's downfall represented an unexpected opportunity. Having narrowly lost in the VCT Ascension 2024 Grand Finals, they were suddenly promoted to fill Bleed's vacated spot in the VCT Pacific League. I think Boom's social media manager put how we were all feeling about this pretty well, but obviously they had far more of a reason to be excited. Bleed Esports, in the meantime, has gone radio silent after everything that came forward. With both public and criminal courts chasing the leadership down, there are no more players, no more staff, and no communication as of recording this video. In all likelihood, the org as a whole is dead. While massive organizational failures like Bleed can shake the entire esports industry, other controversies strike at the very core of competitive integrity itself. In October 2023, the Valorant Game Changers scene, a competitive circuit for marginalized genders, faced that kind of crisis. On October 5th, 2023, during the GC North American Series 3 main event, an unsigned team called Newt faced off against Complexity GX3 in a lower bracket match. But that match would never go on to be completed. Midway through, Riot's anti-cheat system flagged suspicious activity from one of Newt's players. The match paused for over an hour as tournament officials investigated. When play finally resumed, it wasn't to continue the competition. Instead, officials announced that Newt had been disqualified for cheating violations. The news hit the Valo community like a truck, and for some, it wasn't just because of the principal. Content creator and team owner Disguised Toast, whose Game Changers team had lost to Newt earlier in the tournament, expressed frustration about the money and effort wasted on a team that got eliminated by another that was now DQ'd. The player at the center of the controversy was Malibu, who initially denied the accusations. Suspicions had been raised after a remarkable clutch play where Malibu eliminated 4 members of GX3 in suspiciously quick succession.
Nice. 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 Misu. What? Check her PC. Check her PC.
But the scandal went beyond just in-game cheating. Allegations emerged that another one of Newt's members, Summertime, had used an AI-generated photo as their team headshot, raising questions about the players' authentic identities. Other members of Newt quickly tried to distance themselves from the accusations, claiming they had no knowledge of any cheating. Another team member, Mealy, posted an emotional apology to fans, explaining that they had been impressed by Malibu's skill and had no suspicion of foul play until after the fact. This scandal was particularly damaging because of where it occurred. The Game Changers circuit was specifically created to provide more opportunities for women and other marginalized genders in Valorant Esports. To have competitive integrity compromised in a space meant to foster growth and inclusion was especially disappointing to the community. Coaches and players from other teams expressed their anger at the situation. Shopify Rebellion, the most decorated GC team in history, openly criticized Newt. SR's coach Robwiz even labeled their actions as pathetically unacceptable. Following the disqualification, Complexity GX3 was awarded the victory and allowed to progress in the lower bracket. Riot Games, in addition, launched a comprehensive investigation, promising serious measures against those involved. Of course, the controversy that tends to bring in the most attention is when VCT players find conflict with one another. It's not often we get a peek behind the curtains of the best teams in the world, especially when what we see may not be pretty. But that's exactly what happened with Edward Gaming, China's Valorant dynasty, when a seemingly routine roster change erupted into a full-blown public meltdown. In April 2025, Edward Gaming made a roster change that would prove far more consequential than anyone anticipated. They benched star player Simon and replaced him with a practically completely unproven rookie that they had kept in their back pocket, Genie. For many fans, this decision was baffling. Simon had been widely regarded as a key contributor to EDG's recent successes, including the 2024 World Championship, and his sudden benching left supporters confused and upset. Simon's dedicated fan base immediately mobilized in his defense. The netizens flooded social media with messages supporting him and criticizing the org for the decision. Some fans even directed their frustration at Genie, creating a toxic environment around the entire team. The situation quickly spiraled beyond a simple roster adjustment into something much more problematic. So much so that the team's manager, Aqua, felt compelled to address the growing controversy directly. In an attempt to clear the air, Aqua hosted a live stream to explain the reasoning behind the roster change. According to him, the decision was based on performance and work ethic. Genie was reportedly training harder, while Simon had allegedly been slacking in his practice regimen. And if the fans needed any more clarification, they got it when other EDG players began sending donations during Aqua's stream, a move that fans interpreted as teammates publicly siding with Aqua. The situation reached its boiling point when private WeChat messages between Simon and Aqua were leaked to the public. These messages revealed a heated back and forth that painted a troubling picture of the team's internal dynamics. In the conversation, Simon questioned why he was being held to different standards than his teammates. Did I not practice the agents the coach wanted? Didn't player not practice too? You said player never learned utility properly. Didn't I study and train for utility too? So what you mean is, they don't need to practice other things, but I have to? Aqua responded with his own accusations, claiming he had evidence of Simon's lack of commitment. I've been watching through the cameras. You were already playing other games. Simon denied these allegations, insisting he was practicing and watching matches during his downtime. But now that Simon had publicly questioned his teammates' professionalism and work ethic, the rest of the EDG Valorant roster broke their silence. Chinese superstar Kong criticized Simon for his poor communication during scrims, stating, if you communicated in scrims even a fifth as much as you do during streams, we wouldn't want to drop you. Teammate Chichu was blunt in his assessment. Whenever you don't communicate during scrims and games, have you ever considered that the other people want to get good results? Nobody also chimed in, claiming that Simon couldn't remember what was discussed in scrims, didn't participate in VOD reviews, and relied entirely on teammates and coaches for utility planning. Perhaps most damaging were the accusations about Simon's emotional reactions to matches. Multiple teammates claimed they frequently had to comfort him after games, with nobody stating that if Simon has bad stats after a game, regardless of whether they won or lost, he will say he doesn't want to play and that he should be replaced. This painted a picture of a player struggling with consistency and confidence, contrasting sharply with the talented star persona his fans had embraced. As the public drama intensified, the situation took an even darker turn. EDG player Smoggy was allegedly doxxed by angry fans, leading the org to take legal action and file a police report. This kind of controversy going public in what is overwhelmingly the biggest section of the Valorant community, China, had come to bring out the worst in so many, and the real-world consequences shook much of that space to the core. EDG announced that they would continue with Genie for the remainder of Stage 1, and if they had made it, the Toronto tournament, while Simon would focus on streaming. The organization maintained that the decision was based purely on performance and work ethic. Teammate Kong Kong's parting comment perhaps best encapsulated the emotional toll of the situation. I always wanted to walk side by side until retirement. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said, I must win a grand slam with all my buddies. As Valorant continues to grow as an esport, these controversies will likely be remembered as growing pains. Difficult but necessary experiences that ultimately strengthen the community's standards and expectations. The beauty of esports lies in its evolution. With each controversy comes an opportunity to learn, adapt, and build a more resilient competitive environment. For Valorant, these dark moments aren't the end of the story. They're chances to redefine what excellence and integrity mean in this rapidly maturing esport.